All right, off the edge, we're talking cornerbacks today. There's some big names that we're going to get to. Really excited about it. Cam, of course, is a former defensive player, so he's a kid in a candy store over there. Cam, how you doing, my guy?
Man, I'm doing good, Jake. I mean, the cornerbacks, Jake, they're not. I don't love them as much, Jake, as I love the defensive linemen, because the defensive linemen, they protect me, Jake. When I was playing a linebacker, the cornerbacks, though, I said I don't love them as much. I lied. I think when it comes to a cornerback, when it comes to their skill as an athlete, I think there's one of the better athletes on the football field. To defend someone going backwards, you try it, Jake. You try it, and we'll see what happens. So a lot of respect to these guys. I'm excited to go through this list, this top 10. And yeah, let's rock and roll.
It's funny you say that, Cam. That was always my least favorite thing about playing like pickup football in the park. I'd hate having to cover somebody because it's like I'm about to get put on skates. Like, I don't care how athletic I am. I can run a straight line. I could be that Tutu Atwell over the top. Yeah. But I ain't, I'm not moving around like that. Like, I can't stop on a dime. I'm going to tear my ACL, rip my ankle in half, So, yeah, I like envy those guys that could stop on a dime. But at the same time, just let them be them, because that's not something I would ever want to do. And as a rookie, it's funny because, corners as rookies just get completely dogged on by like the media and whatnot. And it's like, you just do not understand. Like, that and tight end are probably the two toughest positions to play as a rookie.
Brutal. And, I mean, tight end, you got to block people. You got to catch the football. Like, it's a lot that goes into the tight end. But the cornerback, unless, like you said, rookie gets they talk smack against them. Unless you're Sauce Gardner, Jake, Sauce had to earn his name.
That's what makes it so impressive. Like, Sauce Gardner's going against Stephon Diggs. He's going against guys like that on a consistent basis. Diggs twice a year, and like, to me, it's like, you come in the NFL and there's no growing pains that are allowed at the cornerback spot, because these games are won and lost on like 3 to 4 plays. You know what I mean? And so you don't want to be one of those, plays. And I think really what it comes down to is the amount of speed that's in the league now. Everyone wanting to play wide receiver, seeing Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, etc. over the years, and just being like, yeah, I think that looks like fun. I want to do that. You have corners moving to the wide receiver spot because it's a fun position. And so the corners that have stuck by and are like, you know what, we want to put down, like, I'm locking this guy down. I want to make his day miserable. I want to be the shutdown guy. I want to have my own island. Those are the guys that are really, I mean, they're not cutting any corners, Cam. They're really having to earn their stripes, if you will.
It's the hard way, Jake. And the thing too, I think I forget who mentioned it, but they said as sports progress, it gets harder and harder for the defense. The offense is figuring out more ways to beat the defense. Guys are getting faster. Schemes are getting more complex, and it's just getting harder and harder for the defense. Even for the NFL, they want people to score, Jake. So they're making it unfair for these DBs. So these guys have a tough life, Jake. We talk about hard knock life. Cornerbacks have a hard knock life, and you got guys who have been doing it for a long amount of time, like Patrick Peterson. I mean, the fact that he's still hanging on, Jake, at a high clip, it's amazing. So I'm excited to jump into this list. It's going to be good.
I am as well. And before we get into that, Bet Online is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. Bet Online is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball, MLB, NHL to golf, UFC, and boxing. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games, available right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code Bleav to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, Cam, we start with honorable mentions, and this list is going to be pretty big here. I decided to, it's going to be healthy. I decided to go with 6-7 guys. Just because I think this is another one of those positions where, like linebacker, there are a few guys that I left out, and it was like, all right, I think they're kind of the top 10 talent, but they just couldn't make it. This is a position where there are a ton of guys that just didn't make it. And, I first want to, give a shout out to Tyson Campbell of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had himself kind of a bumpy road as a rookie 2nd-round pick out of Georgia. And when I watched him this past year, going back, watching the tape, he's just Mr. Consistent, man. He's gotten so good as a cover guy on the outside, but also what he can do as a run defender. I like that he can play, both areas and play them effectively. And, he can get better, but I think he's number 11 for me, right outside that top 10. Next up, I have Tariq Woolen. We talk about rookies, right?
Beast.
Woolen, I think really what it comes down to is he is such a great story coming out of UTSA in the 5th round. I think he deserves a lot of credit. At the same time, like when I hear him and Sauce Gardner, there's no argument, because I just don't think people understand Gardner does everything extremely well. Woolen has the picks, but Woolen is not perfect in coverage. Woolen is still a work in progress. He's just really good, and he's incredible value coming out of the 5th round. Then I had Marlon Humphrey, who, this hurts me, man. I love Marlon Humphrey as a player and also just as like a personality on Twitter. The guy always made me laugh. Just like he stopped tweeting a lot, but he's a funny guy. I think really what comes down to, guys, he's known for his run support as a corner. He's a good coverage corner. But, those, 8 forced fumbles he had a few years back, which was absolutely insane, might I add. He's not quite there anymore. It seems like he's fallen off a little bit, or maybe he's kind of stagnated, which isn't a bad thing, but guys are getting better. So he's an honorable mention.
I would like
AJ
him
Terrell.
to change that. I would like him to change that number though. Going back to Marlon, that 44, it's a little nasty, Jake. I would like him to change it up a little bit.
I liked it at first. I was like, all right, let's see how it does. I don't know. 44, like the guy for the Cincinnati Reds, everyone is like raving about. Ellie De La Cruz, he's wearing 44. And, I feel like 44 is a great baseball number. I think 44 is a fullback number, which is a dying position in this league.
Right.
And so, it's a little weird, but I mean,
it is what it is. Yeah.
He made it work for a little bit. Now, I mean, he's got to get back on his horse. AJ Terrell also, I mean, I came away last year with his tape, not this past year, but last year. Okay, this guy might be a top 5 corner in the NFL, but this past year wasn't the best for him, so he fell into the honorable mention section, as well as Tre'Davious White. The best ability is availability, and he's just not always available, but he's still great and wants, he definitely deserves a mention. And lastly, Cam, to finish out my honorable mentions, DJ Reed of the New York Jets, 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. They let him go. He goes to the Jets. He's playing opposite Sauce Gardner. It didn't matter if Sauce was there or not. DJ Reed is playing good football. So I think he's one of the most underrated corners in the game. And so I had to make mention of him.
Yeah, he's on my list, Jake, as well. I got DJ Reed and Marlon Humphrey on my list as well. Ooh. DJ Reed, yeah. Well, we didn't talk about this list at all, Jake. So
we did not.
This is what it is. But yeah, DJ Reed. I think you mentioned it before when there's an all-star on one side and like you're kind of like that shadow guy. What do you call it, Jake? A shadow sleeper, or what is it called?
Yeah, shadow sleeper from draft shows.
There you go, shadow sleeper. I think DJ Reed is that shadow sleeper. I know, just watching this film, he had one interception where his body's like flat. You know what I mean? Making these crazy, carnival type catches. And so DJ Reed, he definitely deserves that respect as well. And iron sharpens iron at the end of the day, Jake. And you got Sauce Gardner on the other side, DJ Reed on the other. So can they be the best tandem in the NFL? Who knows? We'll see. But they got to get past L'Jarius Sneed, Jake. I have him on honorable mentions. He might be in your list. I'm not sure. He's a baller. Talk about his gameplay coming from the Chiefs, Jake. Anyone that's playing on the Chiefs, you got to show them respect. He's been to the Super Bowl in the past couple of years, so he has to be on one of these lists. And the reason why he's not, Jake, is because I got some boys on there. But L'Jarius Sneed, I love his gameplay. I have him, Jake, as like I said, can we move him to safety? Can we move him to linebacker? Just the way he blitzes. I love the way he just blitzes and gets in the backfield. A lot of times for me, I think I said it earlier. I was like, I don't really love corners because sometimes corners don't like to tackle, Jake. But L'Jarius Sneed, he goes and he wants to stick his nose into that football or whoever has it. So I like a guy like L'Jarius Sneed. Like I said, great tackler, makes plays in the backfield. And like I said, I want him to line up in the boxes sometimes and go ahead and fill some gaps up because he's like that. And then lastly, Marlon Humphrey, the one with the linebacker number, right? Number 44. Marlon Humphrey, he can blitz as well. Early on in his career, some of the notes I have from him was teach tape, right? You cut on his tape and his technique is great. That's one thing I think for him that's keeping him going, Jake, is his technique. His productivity might not be where it used to be, but I do Bleav that his technique is still solid. I think he's an anchor of that defense, essentially. When I look at that Ravens defense, I'm looking at the DBs and I'm like, hey, Marlon, he's that guy. So I got those three as my honorable mention. And Jake, they don't get enough love a lot of times. So I'm glad we put them at the front of our show. They don't get the tweets. They don't get all that. But I'm glad we're starting our show off with these honorable mentions and these corners.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to mention it, L'Jarius Sneed, who you mentioned, 4th round pick, and DJ Reed, 5th round pick. But this guy one-ups all of them because number 10 for me is Charvarius Ward, a undrafted rookie free agent who made his name with the Chiefs. Then he goes and he signs with the Niners. And this guy across the board, he is just a stout player. He's one of the best run defending corners in football. I would say it's Ramsey and then, Marlon Humphrey and then maybe him. I think he's right there. So he really improved in coverage. Didn't have the best year before he went to the Niners, but the Niners season, and you could say maybe that's a product of what is around him, but man, production's production. Okay. I don't care how well you're playing, with guys, without guys. If you're not playing well, without like having guys around you, that's an argument to be made, but we shouldn't be taking away anything for guys that are succeeding when other guys are. It's the greatest show on turf thing that we've talked about before. You can't penalize Marshall Faulk because his stats weren't as good as some other running backs because he also is sharing with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt and so forth. So it's the same thing there. And like for me, Charvarius Ward plays for the 49ers. I get it. Like they're a top team and all that, but what if maybe we're not looking at it from the way we should be? What if he's making Bosa's life easier? What if he's making Arik Armstead's life easier? Ebukam last year. I don't feel like that's really fair how it's always like, well, Bosa's the bigger name, so clearly Bosa's making his life easier. I don't know. I think it's kind of, it can go both ways. So Ward played a hell of a season last year, deserves credit, and for me, he's number 10.
Yeah, and Jake, one thing too when it comes to the defensive linemen, Jake, we talked about this on our defensive lineman segment. These guys are running 4.3s. We talk about Bosa and his efficiency and getting to the quarterback from A to B, that straight line. And a lot of times, Jake, Bosa's able to get there so quickly because the receiver's not open, right? Yeah. The first read for the quarterback is not there. And by that time, Joey Bosa has already made his first move and now is in the quarterback's lap. So it's a complementary piece, Jake. And you go back to the Eagles, where how they drafted 2 just dogs on the defensive line. And that's only going to help out the DBs, Slay and those guys. So they both are complementary. Jake, my number 10 is someone that we mentioned before. He got hurt last year. He's playing for the Chargers now, J.C. Jackson. Wow, what a guy. Anytime I'm looking up his stats, Jake, my man was top 3. Besides last year, he was hurt last year, just mentioned that, but he was top 3 in interceptions for the past couple years in 2020, 2021, and 2021. So he had 9 interceptions in 2020, and I Bleav 8 in 2021. So my man's a baller, Jake. My man's a baller. And like I said, unfortunately, he got hurt this past season, but I think him going to the Patriots and learning from a Bill Belichick, he's able to take that knowledge and go apply it at the Chargers. Jake, the Chargers are going to be dangerous. I mean, having a guy like him on the corner, what do you call Mr. Interception, right? And Mr. INT on his Twitter, on his social media handle. So J.C. Jackson knows how to find the football. What we're going to find out here when we talk about this, Jake, a lot of times, you just mentioned it, rec football, you're covering the receiver. A lot of times cornerbacks find success because they know what the route's going to be. They know they're inside the offensive coordinator's nugget, right? They're like, okay, the offensive coordinator likes to do this on second down, second and third, right? So cornerbacks like J.C. Jackson find success with the football because they know what's about to happen before it happens. So hats off to him, Jake. I mean, I saw him at the Patriots and Rams game in 2018, I believe it was. And I was doing my research for the game, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, who is he? And he coming out of Maryland, right? He finished in 2018. I think he might have gotten there after Diggs left. But I watched him. I'm like,
undrafted.
He's now impeccable.
That was stupid because he was my 7th overall corner in that draft. I really liked him. Then he goes to New England. I'm like, oh, it's done.
Of course.
It's done. His fate is sealed. He's going to be good. Like, that's all we know. Like, it's just going to work out.
Gilmore. He was playing with Gilmore at the same time. So he just getting better and better and better. And like you said,
the McCourty brothers.
And the man, he just has not like knowledge. So I think we talked about this with Levante David and Devin White. Devin White was so great his first couple of years because he had a guy that can tell him where the ball was going to be before it got there. A guy like Luke Kuechly who's calling it out to the stands. The fans know where the football is going to go. So if J.C. Jackson's playing at the Patriots with Gilmore and the McCourty twins, he's cooking. He's just going to eat all day.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him. I actually kind of forgot about him. Yes. He would have been in my honorable mentions if I remembered. I don't think he would have made my top 10, but very, very close. And I think this year he can definitely put himself back on the map. Number 9, I have a guy that is coming from one of your teams that you played for, Jamel Dean. When you look at the best, I mean, aside from Jalen Ramsey, okay, like who would you say is like the best tackling corner? I'd probably say Jamel Dean. And, I looked at him and I was like, yeah, I think he has a chance to, as long as he continues to build himself up out of Auburn, coming out of the draft. I mean, he's got the tackling ability, the run defense ability. And I think really what it comes down to with Dean is that you just want to see him as a cover guy just evolve. And I think, iron sharpens iron. We talk about that all the time, going against Godwin, going against Mike Evans, guys like that in practice will make his life easier. And it has made his life easier. And so I think he's pushed his way into the top 10. I really do.
Okay, yeah, and he's playing across from Carlton Davis, right? Who he played with at Auburn as well, and so I believe the Buccaneers signed him back again. So it's really cool to see him back in the saddle, and he's one of the leaders of that defense. He was a part of that Super Bowl team as well. So you got to tip your cap off to Jamel Dean. I know he likes to dye his hair blonde a little bit, but one person, Jake, that I want to put on this list that I don't want to disrespect, because like I said, I did it to DeAndre Hopkins, and I won't do it again. Patrick Peterson's my number 9.
I knew that's where you were going.
How did you know that, Jake? How did you know that?
I actually didn't put him in my honorable mentions because I assumed that you would mention him. Him being in your top 10 also makes sense because he had a little bit of a drop-off season. And then, I think that, this past year, right? So he had a drop-off season, I guess, 2 years ago now. And then this past year, he really was one of the best corners in the league again. He just signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so it'll be, interesting, what happens there with guys like TJ Watt and, Alex Highsmith, 2 guys that made my list, one guy that made yours for the edge spot. Just that defense, with Minkah at the top of it. I really like that for him. And I'm sure he really likes that because, you could argue he was a top 10 corner last year and you could argue he was a top 5 corner last year. I preferred other guys and I know he's getting older, and cause this is going into 2023, but yeah, no, I absolutely hear you, in mentioning him.
Let me jump in on that too, Jake. He's a Hall of Famer. Let's just full stop. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Playing cornerback. And like you said, I think this past year, I think he's had one of his better years. He tied for second interceptions with 5 of them. So that goes to show he's
continued. It was a down year for interceptions in the league, man. I just thought about that.
That means quarterbacks are protecting that football. That's what that means, right? In the offseason, they're preparing. They're making sure that they're having that ball security because at the end of the day, Jake, turnovers determine ball games. We always talk about this. The turnover margin determines football games, and quarterbacks have to protect the football or the team's going to lose. So, with those 5 interceptions, that's really impressive. And like I said, he's a Hall of Famer. You think he's slowing down a little bit. You think he's a dinosaur. No, he's not. He's going to go to the Steelers. He's going to He's going to link up with Joey Porter Jr., and he's going to teach him the ropes, Jake. And I really love that move by Tomlin, getting this veteran over there who got drafted in 2011, Jake. So we talk about some of these dinosaurs in the NFL. Like we're seeing 2012, 2013. This guy got drafted in 2011. That's when I graduated high school. So the fact that he's still playing, that's insane. And so going to the Steelers, that means he's going to the playoffs, right? The Steelers have been to the playoffs pretty much every year that Tomlin's been the head coach. So Patrick Peterson, like I said, walking Hall of Famer, and I had to put him on this list. I got to respect his name.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot last year to justify that. Number 8 for me is a guy that really, I think he got better as a pure cover guy, lost his interceptions. I still think he's overrated, but I kept him on the top 10 list. It's Trayvon Diggs. There's some people that say he's the number 1 corner in the league, and I just have to chuckle at that because there are things I like about his game, and he went from an underrated rookie for me, a guy that I really liked coming out of Bama, to a guy that was like, man, did he get overrated, to the point where it was like, it was almost not even, like it wasn't even fair to him. Because you're saying he's better than, people were literally saying he's better than Jalen Ramsey. I'm like, he doesn't play the run like Ramsey. You could say, okay, he gets more interceptions. Ramsey, his cover ability is literally like he annihilates one side of the field entirely. Like you can take a receiver out of the game. With Diggs, it's like anybody can score on Diggs, because he takes risks. And you can look at like Marcus Peters. He's still in the league. He's still kicking. But is he like an upper echelon corner anymore? No. And I think those risk takers we see, they have their moment in the sun and then they kind of fall out a little bit. And so it's really up for Trayvon to develop as a pure cover corner, or he's going to be like a Marcus Peters who's good. People know his name, but isn't top 10. And another one, Janoris Jenkins, who, Jackrabbit, when he was with the Rams, I mean, he looked like he was going to be something special. And his career didn't really turn out to be like what we could have expected based on what he looked like, And so I think it's an important thing to mention. I think cover ability is a big deal. And I think Diggs is a good tackler, to be honest with you. I do. But just overall, like playing the run, I don't think he is as efficient as like a Jalen Ramsey, a Jamel Dean, guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Jackrabbit, Jake. I got to play with Jackrabbit. Couldn't understand a damn word he said, but that boy can ball, Jake. He can ball, and I do believe maybe, outside factors maybe played a role in that. I know he had some trouble when he was at the Giants, everything like that. So who knows? Who knows what happens? Little things can happen that can take your career a different way. Not saying it was like a John Morant thing, right? John Morant, he's out here wilding. But Janoris Jenkins ran into some trouble a couple of times in his career, and who knows how that took a toll on his life and what that looks like. But now he's creating music. He's an artist. He's doing his thing. So
my man knows everybody. Like,
yeah. I mean, hey, I played with him, so I gotta show love to my guys, Jake. But going back to Trayvon Diggs, I somewhat know him as well. I think I might have told you, but I trained. So Ryan Smith, who I played with at the Buccaneers, he's from DC, so I'm gonna go train with Ryan in DC. And Stephon and Trayvon Diggs happened to just be training with him as well. So I'm like, okay, excuse me, let's see what these guys are about, Jake. And so so the way we go work out, Jake, is they warm up by playing basketball. Go ahead, shoot some hoops, just get some competition going, run around a little bit, get your body warm. Jake, this dude, Trayvon Diggs, he's dunking, he's shooting from half court. These guys are next level athletes. And one thing I want to call out, you mentioned you feel like he's going to peter out. I think there's power and accountability. I think when it comes to Stephon, I think he's going to keep him accountable, Jake. I don't think he's going to let Trayvon drop off. Because you think about in 2021, my man had 11 interceptions. So, he had that kind of spark that we're seeing from Michael Parsons. I think Michael Parsons definitely is more consistent when it comes to his productivity and being number 1 at his position. But Trayvon Diggs, super athletic. And like I said, we've been talking about this before, but these cornerbacks act like receivers. Trayvon Diggs covers I don't know if people have been seeing on Twitter, him and his brother doing those backyard drills where they're on the concrete, playing one-on-one. And like I said, iron sharpens iron. And Trayvon Diggs, when that ball's in the air, he acts like he's Stephon Diggs and he's on the defense. So the fact that he has Gilmore on the other side of him, I think he's going to get even better, Jake. I don't think he's going to drop off. I know you said like Marcus Peters, but I don't see that for him. I see too much greatness in him. And also, too, and Marcus Peters' personality, Jake. Marcus Peters' personality kind of got him in and out of situations, and I don't see that for Diggs. You know, his son is cute. I mean, the league loves him, so I see him I kind of see him taking on a Patrick Peterson, career. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, Jake.
That's what I think he needs to do, because I think Patrick Peterson was all about game-breaking, explosiveness, sexy, let's blow up the game, let's be that, prime-time Deion Sanders type of player. And, like, that's the thing. Like, prime-time today, like, he can't tackle. So, I mean, it wouldn't look great, right? But, look, like, no disrespect to Deion. He's, one of the greatest of all time at the position. The point is that I think tackling now, when you have, like, a Pro Football Focus, you have access to all 22. I think even, like, a little bit higher than casual fans are starting to take notice. And it's not that, say, Trayvon Diggs isn't tackling, but I think just like the other guys are just better in run support. The other guys are better coverage guys. I mean, we have the technology now to literally pinpoint in on 1v1s, whereas back in the day, we didn't really have that. So maybe there are guys that get, high praise. I'm not saying any names, but maybe there are guys that get high praise and didn't really deserve it. I will say, Lester Hayes doesn't get the high praise. The dude should be a Hall of Famer, and he's not. I don't know why, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, neither here nor there. But like I said, though, Trayvon, I think he's going to do well. He might be a little bit overrated, like you said. He's playing for the Cowboys, the number one sports team in the world, essentially, or highest grossing team in the world. So it's going to happen. But I wish the best for him.
Yeah, no, this is We support the players, so I may think he's overrated, but it's kind of the whole thing with the linebacker piece with Dre Greenlaw last episode. Like, I acknowledged his on the field, like after late whistle hits and whatnot, but I also acknowledged like the good stuff he did off the field.
Yeah,
so
we got to talk about both, Jake. We're here to share the news and share our opinion. And hey, not everyone is peaches and rainbows.
Yeah, well, that's true. This next guy. Wait, did you already go?
Yep. I went Trayvon Diggs for mine.
We both had him at 8. Okay.
We had the same one.
How about that? Yeah. Great minds think alike. Number 7 is a guy that, well, when you go and you Google him on Google Images, you're going to see him coming down with a historical interception to pretty much end the Super Bowl. And that was Super Bowl 53 against the Rams, of course, as you know. And it's sad, but I mean, this is what he is. This is a guy that's a closer. He comes in, I'm not going to say he's Mariano Rivera, but he's pretty darn good. And when you got that size and you got that physicality and just his IQ as a football player, there's not a shock that, the Cowboys went out and grabbed this guy. And we're like, we're going to put him next to Trayvon Diggs. So I have Stephon Gilmore at number 7. And I think he could be higher, and maybe it's unfair for him to be this low. But I think, him being in the top 10, I think is definitely fair. I think if anyone were to argue that, this is pretty much where he stands right now. He's still one of the top cover corners in the NFL, and I don't see that changing this year. So going into 2023, he's 7 for me.
Yeah, no, Jake, he's not far from you on the list either, Jake. He's a baller. At the end of the day, like you mentioned, playing for the Patriots, getting that understanding, he is him. At the end of the day, whenever a receiver is lined up, the best receiver is lined up, he's going to cover him, right? I'm not sure how it's going to go with Trayvon or what that's going to look like, but usually Gilmore is the guy that covers him. But I'm going to talk about another person that is going to cover every best wide receiver on the team, and that's Marshawn Lattimore, Jake. I got him at number 7 for me. Lattimore, I've seen him up close against Mike Evans specifically, Jake, right? You see a lot of times when Mike Evans is fighting somebody, he's always fighting Lattimore. I think he's his kryptonite, Jake. He might be Mike Evans' kryptonite. Just the way he plays ball, he talks his shit. And that's one thing about these corners that I really like is they talk smack. And you have to at that position. You're backpedaling and covering somebody. So whenever you get a win, you got to celebrate. And he does that. Marshawn Lattimore coming out of Ohio State. And Jake, when you look at his stats, you look at his numbers, you think about interceptions, like, okay, you want those to kind of be higher a little bit. He only has like 2 to 3 interceptions kind of in the past couple of years. but he's locked down, my guy. Like it might be not be many interceptions because he's probably either batting it down, the ball's going over the receiver's head, or whatever that is. And so I really like Lattimore. Like I said, if I were to build a team, I don't know if he's going to start for me at corner, but he's definitely probably coming off the bench. I might throw him at nickel, but he's a dog, Jake. I've seen him live going up against these big receivers, like I said, like Mike Evans, and just shutting them down, man, putting clamps on them. So I got Lattimore right there at my number 7.
Yeah. I think Lattimore's a good player. He didn't make my list, but he's definitely, it's funny how many names we talk about. I think it's really like, hey, what's your flavor? Like you kind of have your pick of the litter here. Number 6 for me is coming from the NFC champion Eagles, and it is James Bradberry. And honestly, this could go either or. I got James Bradberry at 6. I got Darius Slay at 5. I could argue on like maybe tomorrow I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I think James Bradberry is better today than Darius Slay. And then maybe the next day is Darius Slay. Well, today it's Darius Slay at 5 and Bradberry at 6. And, I think Bradberry, what's really interesting to him is he came to a career crossroads where it was like, either kill or be killed, right? And so I think when you look at what he's done, especially going into this year, I think it was really impressive the way he elevated his game. You saw with the Giants, it was like, his rookie year at Carolina, really intriguing, right? Mind you, this is somebody that was drafted in the 2nd round out of Samford. So, not a huge school, but drafted out of Samford. He has a good rookie season, doesn't really do anything on the level of his rookie season after that. Goes to the Giants. You see some good things the first year with the Giants, the second year, not so much. And then this past year, I think with the Eagles, he kind of just rounded out his career, his play style, his overall game. And so that's why he's at 6. And then I'll say number 5, because I already mentioned him, with Slay. I just think Darius Slay, he's kind of the opposite of that. Right now, Bradberry is potentially better, but I think the body of work matters. And I think Darius Slay is less about, oh yeah, he's been good, a few years. No, he's literally been a consistent, dominant corner since he came to the league, in 2013. And, he might not have played that much in 2013, but you saw the makings of it. And then immediately 2014, 15, 16, with the Lions, this is somebody that I think, when it's all said and done, I think he has a shot at the Hall of Fame. I do. I think he's fantastic. And I also think people forget he's only 32. I understand corners like fall off, but if he keeps playing at this level, Hall of Fame is going to be a shoo-in. Like I know right now we're kind of like, he might be, hey, maybe if he gets over the hump, wins another, he wins a ring in Philly, maybe that changes everything, right? I don't know, but I will say that, he was in Detroit when Philly won their last Super Bowl, so he doesn't have that ring. But what he's been able to do coming out of Mississippi State, I think he's had a very impressive career. At the very least, he's in the Hall of Very Good.
The Hall of Very Good, Jake. I got him on my list too, but I won't say it right now because he's a little bit higher up. That's how good I think he is. But right now, number 6, I got Stephon Gilmore. We talked about him. Talk about a dinosaur. Now we talk about Patrick Peterson being a dinosaur. I got Gilmore as a dinosaur, Jake. I mean, he drafted in 2012, right, coming out of South Carolina. When you look at Stephon Gilmore, you hear him talk. I call him Mr. Smooth. I mean, my man, he's like, yeah, I'm out here covering, locking people down, whatever, la, la, la. Like
the opposite of Jenkins.
The opposite of Janoris Jenkins. You call it Jack Rabbit. You can't hear jack shit what he's saying. So, no, Stephon Gilmore, though, Jake, he's a beast, man. He's a beast. I think we've already talked about him, well enough. I think he had some of his best stats, his best season, I think in 2019, 2018, when against the Rams at that Super Bowl. He has a championship. So he's an impressive guy. And he's only going to make that Cowboy team that much better, right? He's going to make them that much better. Trayvon Diggs, he's going to be a mentor for him. I'm not sure how much longer he has in the NFL. I'm not sure what that looks like. Same thing for Patrick Peterson. So it's cool to see the NFL respect these dinosaurs, Jake, and say, hey, old head, come on and teach this young bull so we can make sure that this game is taken care of. And I like that. And then, Jake, I'm going to go up to my number 5 really quick because I know you went up to your number 5. I'm going to go Jair Alexander.
That's a guy I love. We're gonna get to him on my list, but yes, talk about Jair.
Yeah, Jair, man. I mean, you talk about heat check, Jake. You talk about big cash. He's one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the league. You know, you think about who is the best player in the NFL, who are the best players. Well, you just go to the money line. You just go see what the contract is looking like, and he's one of the top paid cornerbacks. He's number 1 with 21 mil. All right, the Green Bay Packers doubled down on him. I'm sure he sharpened his skills and practiced with Aaron Rodgers all those years. He's a baller. Jake, one of the things that I have for him, clamps. Like, I just think of him and I think clamps. He was second in interceptions this year with 5. Like you said, not many footballs being intercepted, but he is super impressive. You think about the body of work that he has. Like I said, he's just talking smack and making big plays. Justin Jefferson, put the clamps on him. Whoever, name a receiver. Jair Alexander, I'm going to definitely sign him up. I think we talked about making the team and who you're going to put on that team of cornerbacks. He will be on my team for sure because I like the way he talks smack, and he'll go on live television and talk crazy. He doesn't care because he's paid, so I love it.
Yeah, no, Jair is just fantastic. Perfect segue into my number 4. He was number 2 for me for a while, and then Sauce Gardner and Pat Surtain came in the league. So, you know, look, Jair Alexander is one of my all-time favorite corners coming out of any draft that I've evaluated. I remember how many people were sleeping on this guy because he had injury concerns. And, you know, I watched him at Louisville, and I'm like, this guy mirrors better than anybody I've seen coming out. Like, I really feel like when it's all said and done, all of the guys that I've so far scouted at the corner position, I didn't know if Ramsey was going to play corner or safety, keep in mind. So to me, Jair Alexander is the best corner I've ever scouted, like through and through. And I've started 2015 might be a little generous as far as really getting into it, watching all the tape, but I started in 2016. I think that's fair to say. And, you know, that's a decent margin. I mean, that's almost a decade, right? So, you know, you look at what Jair's done, and I think the thing that is amazing is he is so explosive. He ran a 4.3. A lot of people don't realize that. And this is a guy that they were like, oh, I don't like his hamstrings. Then the guy goes out and runs a 4.3 coming off the hamstring. And you're like, come on. So, look, you know, gets drafted 18th overall, absolute steal. And really, since he's entered the league, you talk about him being clamps. The moment I knew that I was right about Jair Alexander, because I got into a little bit of an argument with my Packers friend who was saying, no, Josh Jackson. Funny story, they end up getting both. But one's killing it, and the other one, I don't know what team he's on. That's not the point. Anyway, the point is, I was so sure of myself that I had nailed this. And when I saw the Rams play Green Bay his rookie year, I was like, this guy, seeing it in person, being at the Coliseum, this guy's a monster. He was giving Robert Woods the business. He was giving all those guys. And I just think his ability to play in the slot, play on the outside, you know, he mirrors so well. It's hard to really get by him. And, you know, what you have in him is a guy that's an equalizer to a guy that moves as quickly as he does in Justin Jefferson. And I think that's really what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, equalizer. Call him that. That's what he is. Super impressive with Jair. And then, Jake, something else when I want to talk about, you mentioned Patrick Surtain the second. He's shaping up to be, you know, when it comes to the Broncos, and
better than his father.
Better than Papa, you know.
Didn't see that one coming, but yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, no, he's daggone impressive, Jake. Just some of the numbers that he's putting up on the Broncos. Right, the Broncos are struggling. You talked about this, like if you're on a bad team, like can you still produce? Like what does that look like? I know in 2021 he had 4 interceptions, which is really cool. He's getting targeted a lot. So people are throwing the football at him, you know, thinking that he's not going to make a play on the ball, but he is. His interceptions dropped a little bit this past year, but clearly they weren't doing too good. So I don't know how motivated he was, but some of the notes I have for him, Jake, big swag. I love his swagger, his demeanor. He never seems to really get out of his frame. A lot of times when he covers, like he's always his feet are always underneath him. He's never really out of position. Another note I have for him is he always gets the ball out. He does not always, but he does a good job of getting the ball out, punching at the football, causing deflections, intercepting the football as well. And then one other thing that I got from him too is he does a great job of baiting the quarterback. A lot of times that cover two, we talk about that honey hole. He's acting like he's covering that flat route that's hitting the sideline, but the quarterback's really trying to get the ball over top. And he does a great job of act like he's biting on it and then goes back and gets the interception. So Patrick Surtain, the second, hopefully Sean Payton can turn that thing around, Jake, because if they can win, he can continue to stay on the top of this list if he stays healthy. So I got Patrick Surtain, Jake, as my number 4.
And you're killing it with the segues because I got Patrick Surtain the second as my number 3.
Nice.
First off, I do have to say his pops was very good. So I'm not trying to, throw any shade. 3-time Pro Bowler, an all-pro in his own right. I just think what we're seeing with Patrick Surtain Jr. or Patrick Surtain the second is that, this Pop did the right thing. He clearly, had this guy ready to go. And I think, when you look at, those Dolphins teams, when, Surtain played with like a Brock Marion in the secondary and Sam Madison, Pro Bowl talents, I do think you see that with Surtain. Surtain still has guys like that, in the back end, with Justin Simmons, but he doesn't have a guy, in my opinion, like Sam Madison on the other side of him. Again, we started this show not taking anything away. If you talent is talent, production's production. It doesn't matter who you play with. But we did also say it makes it a little bit more impressive, when you're not playing with another, running mate. And so, you got Trayvon Diggs this upcoming season going to play with Stephon Gilmore. And it's nothing against the Broncos, but they don't have another top 10. Based on our list, they don't have another top 10 corner playing alongside Patrick Surtain. And so, I think he's already tied his pops with an all-pro. He's 2 Pro Bowls away from tying his father, and his father was a great player. This guy, 6 interceptions the last 2 seasons. He's a playmaker, but he's also a guy that just shuts you down, and I think that's the thing is that while we do like fireworks, we like flashy plays and whatnot, we also like consistency. And I don't have to worry, if Devontae Adams is on the outside. I got Patrick Surtain the second. Devontae's going to win his matchups, but Patrick Surtain's going to win his. And so, and that's important because in that AFC division, I mean, you're talking about Devontae twice a year. You're talking about Mike Williams or Keenan Allen or now, the kid out of TCU, Quentin Johnston. And you have a guy like Surtain who you have for the long haul. This is probably one of if you were going to start like a fantasy draft on Madden, he's probably going in the top 32 of players, period. He's one of the guys that you want to start your team and build around.
Yeah, and he's great in the community too, Jake. There's one thing, he's up for Man of the Year as well. So great on the field, great off the field. I'm hearing Hall of Fame. Hello. You know what I mean? Like that's good stuff. Another person, Jake, you talked about a Hall of Famer as well, possibly. Darius Slay. He's my number 3. And the reason why I put him at number 3, I moved him up is because my man went to the Super Bowl. He got beat a little bit right in the red zone. That play where, that zip play and, miscommunication. Everybody gets got, Jake. But one thing about Darius Slay, he's going to get his. I know that. He's one of the top paid cornerbacks. When you talk about the best, you see who's getting paid the most. He is one of them. He's getting paid a lot of money. So I know he almost left the Eagles, right? He said he was like a couple days or maybe a couple hours away from like not signing back with them and going somewhere else. So
that was weird.
Yeah, super weird. But thank God that the Eagles got their stuff right, Jake, and got him back on that football team. He's a captain, Jake. I think one thing we can't overlook that as a cornerback, you're a captain of your football team. Like that means you're shutting people down on the outside, and that means too that you're demanding attention in the room. And I want to say this too, Jake. A lot of times with cornerbacks, you think about Deion Sanders, you think about the flashy me, I. And for a cornerback to get a captain role, that means he's saying we. Like not like he's French, but he is a team player. He's a team player. So the fact that he's able to command a locker room, command a community, and then also command attention on the football field, that's damn impressive, Jake. I think we've already read out his numbers. I know interceptions, he was 3rd this year. Ninth with 3 interceptions. Last year had 3. He was 11th overall. we're not seeing a lot of interceptions here, Jay, because he's shutting people down. We talked about that. These interceptions don't mean like, hey, oh, he's balling out or he's not. It's because the ball's either going over his head, is being deflected, or is being thrown somewhere else. And so Slay, he's someone to reckon with. Jake, and also too, I think about this. Okay, he's 6 feet tall, so he's a decent size. And for some reason on film, he kind of looks like he's a little bit smaller, right? I think he's like 5'8", 5'9", but I think his bend, his explosiveness, he's more compact, right? He plays more compact, and it shows in his productivity. So I got him at my number 3.
No, I agree. And I mean, we talked about Darius Slay a lot. So we're moving on to 2 and 1. And I'm going to just say this right now. I'm going to have a retraction of what I said about Jair. I love Jair, but it's actually this guy, Sauce Gardner. I was just looking through real quick, and I gave him the highest grade of any corner I've ever given, any defensive back I've ever given, and he's my 3rd highest grade, period. Sauce Gardner, Ahmad Gardner, whatever you want to call him, is really, really darn good at football. And when he got drafted by the Jets, there was just kind of a little bit of a signal like, hey, this is where we're going to start. We're going to start really making a move here. And sure enough, it was like day one. The speed of the game wasn't too much for him. Big 6'3" guy out of Cincinnati. Big reason why Cincinnati was as good as they were. And that team had a bunch of guys, but he just phenomenal player. And, just the one thing I will say is that he is not number 1. He's number 2. He can be number 1. But I think when you look at the one area of his game he needs to improve in is just as a run defender. He is probably the best cover guy in the league now. I think he might be better than Jalen Ramsey, period. But Jalen Ramsey's number 1 for me because Jalen Ramsey, I get everything. I don't just walk into the grocery store and I'm only able to get milk. I'm able to get my milk. I'm able to get my eggs, my cereal. I'm able to get meat. I'm able to get veggies. That's like Jalen Ramsey is the 5-course meal, essentially, is what I'm getting at. Because Jalen Ramsey can rush the passer. Jalen Ramsey can defend the run. Jalen Ramsey's a fantastic tackler. He takes on that role like he's a linebacker. We've seen it in person. Those jarring hits to, guys like, CeeDee Lamb or the one that went viral on Golden Tate where he took him up and he turned into Goldberg. Yeah. He turned into Goldberg or Edge, whatever WWE wrestler you want to. I mean, that's what he did. So Jalen Ramsey is number 1 still. He may not be the best cover corner anymore because I think Sauce is probably the best at this point by a little bit. But Jalen is the number 1 corner in the league because he does everything well. He is a leader on the field. That's the thing. He led that secondary unit for the Rams. He didn't miss a game last year, despite that team wasn't very good, didn't take any plays off. And there are some legends out there at that same position that get way more credit than he does. They don't get flamed on a consistent basis like he does. And this guy is not the guy to get disrespected because he's the one that has ownership about every single aspect of the cornerback position. That's not a guy that you should be flaming because he got burned on one play. We're still bringing up the Darnell Mooney double move that didn't even result into anything. That's not a guy that you should be fooling around with. This is a guy, when it's all said and done, he does everything. And there are not many corners at a position that you said corners don't tackle for the most part. This is a guy that made it his mission to tackle, to rush the passer, and be the best damn player at everything. And so he deserves praise for that.
I like that, Jake. And, you just mentioned it. I had Jalen as my number 2, Jake, and I had Sauce as my number 1. The reason why I had Jalen as my number 2, the Rams went through it last year. We saw it firsthand. You talk about sometimes he's out of coverage, he's out of place, and that's why I put him at number 2 because Sauce was perfect at that. And you mentioned Jalen Ramsey being a captain, being a leader. You're flat out right about that. He leads the NFL, not only just his football team, but he leads the NFL. And just to see what he's done with the community of LA, I think he was in an interview with the Miami Dolphins, and they're like, "Is this the best group that you ever worked with?" He's like, "Yeah, but I want to disrespect my guys in LA." And so, in saying that, I want to say an honorable mention before the show ends. Xavier Howard, Jake. He was leading the league in interceptions. I can't believe we did not say anything about him, but Xavier Howard, honorable mention. But I got Jalen number 2 and Sauce at number 1.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I think we're in a position at the cornerback spot where you look at Sauce and Jalen, and I mean, those are your top 2, you know, in whatever order. And I think after that, you could have 60 different combinations for your top 10.
Yeah.
But
Nickel, you can run what you want. All corners on the, have the corners play defensive back or safety, whatever. But like, yeah, they're the 2 guys that I would pick if I were to create a team.
Yeah, and I just think, when people discredit Jalen and have him outside, like, say, the top 5, and I've seen that on some lists, my thing is I don't think you understand what he does. Yeah. And I get that. Like, okay, like, you just don't, you're ignorant to what he does. Because what he did with because, I mean, what he did with the Rams and what he's going to do with the Dolphins with Fangio, keep in mind, he's going from the Vic Fangio scheme to literally playing under Vic Fangio. So that's an exciting thing here, prospect. And people forget, like, this guy played what we call the Where's Waldo role, because he's all over the place. He's playing corner. He's playing a boundary corner, nickel corner, safety, linebacker. Yeah. And he's still maintaining his level of excellence. And it just goes to show you, just how incredible he is. Another guy that's incredible, and we're going to give a special happy birthday to. Sorry, it's another Ram. Sorry. The best, I go with the best guys, for their happy birthday shout out, at least the first round of this. And it's Cooper Kupp.
Oh, yeah.
He turned 30 today. Right. So he's insane. I mean, he had the greatest season for a wide receiver. If you are going to combine postseason, no one is ever, I don't know if anybody's going to break that. Yeah. The 2,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, that's just insane. 46 touchdowns for his career, almost 7,000 yards, 508 receptions. In only 80 games. Keep in mind, he missed all of 2019 for the most part with a torn ACL. So happy birthday to Cooper Kupp. Hopefully there's 8 more seasons like the one that you just had 2 years ago. But if there's not, then that's totally okay, because I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer, despite the fact there's a giant logjam at the receiver position. Torrey Holt still hasn't made it. And I don't know, they just abuse that position when it comes to the Hall of Fame voting. But this guy will make the Hall of Fame. No doubt about it.
Yeah, he will, man. You talk about humility at that position. He has it. I mean, he's the one, Jake. He's the one. I think you got to give credit to Robert Woods for developing him, Jake, because I don't know if he's the receiver that he is if it weren't for Robert Woods, and also for Sean McVay. So Cooper Kupp, happy birthday, my man.
And Aaron Donald. I mean, being around that guy makes you want to work harder. Cooper Kupp, he feels like a one of one on the offensive side of the ball. Donald feels like a one of one on the defensive side of the ball, and just football in general, and sports in general, honestly, just the level he works. I mean, I've never seen anything like some of the stuff he does, working with knives and shit. So, That's going to do it. Fun episode. We move on. We're going to continue on with this series next week. We're going to wrap it up with the safety position. And there are some really good safeties, just like they're really good corners. There are a lot of safeties. So tune in for that one. Be sure to follow at CameronLynch50 on Twitter, at JK Bogan on Twitter, and the show at Off the Edge Show on Twitter. Like, subscribe, comment, rate, review if you enjoyed this, and go tell somebody. Until next time, guys, you take care, and we'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.